Okay, so this is a tutorial on how to create a background for Sketchfab models. And this process we call, or the image format that we actually convert is called an HDRI. Now an HDRI, so an HDRI is basically it's like a giant image, but it has lighting information that helps light interact with the objects. So if you set an HDRI as your background, it will actually light your object with the image. Anyways, I'll go through that process. So what you want to start off with is that you want to have a 360 panorama photo. And this was taken with a 360 camera. So if you don't have that, you may not be able to take your own, but you can probably stitch together your own kind of 360 photo. But basically you want a 360 photo in this kind of landscape mode, okay? And I already downloaded this, so we have it. Next thing you want to do is that you want to open up Photoshop. And this is an important step. So if you don't have Photoshop, you can access Photoshop using the Team Viewer or the on-campus computers, and they will have Photoshop as well.
Okay.
So I've opened up this JPEG that I downloaded in Photoshop. And if you don't know how to use Photoshop, I won't go over all the tools, but I'll just go over like the ones that we'll use for this process. So first things first, what I want to do is I'm going to go to this button here. It's on the side. This is your adjustments and color corrections. And I'm going to create a brightness. I'm going to create an exposure layer right here. So I create another exposure layer. And here, it doesn't really matter what you set this as, but you just want to set it so it's like brighter. It doesn't matter how much brighter it is, but you don't want to make it super bright. Just make it a little bit brighter by just using the exposure slider. Okay. Once you do that, I'm going to right click my exposure layer and I'm going to go merge down. Right. So now that's one image. Right. So since we did that, I'm going to go File, Save As, and what we're going to end up with is that to make our HDRI, we basically need two images. We need a regular image of like what everything looks like, and then we need another image where it has kind of lighting information that we can use. And a trick that I'm using is actually, I'm sort of tricking Photoshop into thinking that this is my lighting information for my picture by just raising the exposure higher, okay? So I'm gonna go save this, and I'll save this here. I'll just save it as PNG, and I'm going to add underscore lighting. Okay, and actually, since we started with a JPEG, I'm going to also save it as a JPEG. And I'm gonna hit save. I'm just gonna bring up this. Great. Okay, awesome. And then what you want to do, you're going to go to File, go to Automate. And here, there's a button called Merge to HDR Pro. We're going to click on that. And it's going to ask you to load up whatever the two images that we just created. So we're going to use our original image that we started with, and as well the new image we just saved. Okay, so I'm going to browse. This button is, if you opened up the two images already, then it'll just add all of that. We're going to hit browse. I'm going to look for those two images that we had. Let's see. So if I can find the name. There it is. So we're going to open up that. Let's see if it's somewhere here. Okay, and then we're going to find the other one, which is lighting. Your file organization will probably be better than this to make it easier to where to find it. But just doing this quickly. So we have the two files here. I'll press OK. Then Photoshop is going to go through this automation process where they basically merges these two images together to create a new HDRI. And here it's just asking you to set the camera settings that you may have set. By default, it's totally fine. All you have to do is like switch between these two images and then you press OK. You don't have to change anything. They'll open up this other window. Again, here, you don't have to change anything. You can just press OK by default. And then it's going to start creating and merging this. And it'll take a little bit.
So it's usually only two images that we want to merge together, right?
Yeah. So we're merging the two images. One is basically brighter than the other one.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'll notice that the color is slightly shifted. That's sort of normal. You could get around it by adding some color correction. But for the most part, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, before we save this as an HDR, which is a different file format, we want to make sure that this image, the image size, is not too large, because if we're uploading to Sketchfab, Sketchfab actually has an image upload limit. And for this kind of image, which is about 6080 pixels wide and 3040 height, I can convert this to inches. This is quite large. What I can do though is I can actually reduce the size, which reduces the file size here. And the number I usually go to would be like 70. So now you'll see how it went from 105 megabyte to 72, and I set that. And automatically, because these portions is connected, if I change one number, it'll change the other number automatically. So it's still the same kind of ratio, right? So once that's done, I press OK. So made it smaller, that's good. And then another thing I'm going to do is go to Image, Mode, and I want to make sure this is at 32 bits channel. This just changes the color space a little bit, where not only the color space, but basically it allows higher resolution of colors, which is important attribute for an HDR. And we're just faking it, so that's what we're doing. So once we set those two settings, I'm going to save it. I'm going to go File, Save As. And instead of the PSD, which is by default, I'm going to go down here and click Radiance. And then in bracket, you'll see it has HDR, RGBE, and XYZE. Look here, it's going to be .hdr. I'm going to rename this to whatever I can name it. So I'm going to do soil monolith background .hdr. Great. And I can save it here. And I'm going to copy this name. Then it's going to save. Awesome. And then here, it's very easy. We're just going to go to Sketchfab. I have this as Maya's account. And when we find out which monolith we go to, let's say it's 8.1, we're going to go into the Edit 3D settings here. And this step takes a little bit because it takes time to upload and process. All right, and we'll go through that. Okay, so down here in background, right? You know how to change the background color, which is great. There's some other tabs here that we're going to switch it to. In this case, we're going to switch it to environment. Okay, and then we're going to uncheck ambient environment. And then we're going to click zero blur. Right now, you'll notice that there is a background behind here, and we can also set the brightness here if we want to. Now, to change this background so it's actually our image, we're going to go into lighting, go down here, and under environment, it says import HDR file. We're going to import that HDR file that we just saved. This one, that's our save. I'm going to open it. And it's going to start uploading the image, and then it's going to start processing. Now, this step takes a little bit longer because Sketchfab takes a little bit longer to process HDR files. So this might take a while. I'm not going to go through this because after it's done, it should be self-explanatory. But this can take up, like 5-10 minutes. But anyways, I'm going to cancel that. Once it's finished, though, what will happen is that you will have to search for it, and it'll appear at the very bottom. Okay, and then you just
Okay.
select that, and it'll automatically change it. Okay. Now, when you selected it, let me choose a better one. Your image will appear here, and what you want to do in particular for the soil monoliths only is that Maya, the collaborator, wants it to seem like the soil monoliths are coming out of the ground. So I'll bring this. So in this HDR that we made, there's half of it is like the sky and half of it is the ground, right? The horizon. How we want to set it up, if we imagine this is the horizon, and so this part is the ground and this part is the sky, we want to have it so where the soil monolith, and I'm just holding, click and dragging right click to pan. We want to place this so it's just underneath the horizon line.
Okay.
And we might want to zoom in so until it looks like it's a good scale, right? And that's about it. You don't have to rotate. You see now, as soon as I rotate, it changes the horizon line where it's placed. You basically want to set the rotation so you're looking straight at the soil monolith. So this is straight on, and then we can move it with the right click. Move it like that. Okay.
Okay.
Now, that's all the changes we need to do. And imagine this is the background that we uploaded. All we're going to do is click Save View, which means it saves this view. So when you open up this model again, it'll actually, by default, start in this position. And then we can hit Save Settings. Yeah, and that's it. So if I exit, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now you'll see in here the background image and soil monolith. And students can just drag this up and down.
Okay.
Yep, that's about it. I'm gonna stop the recording.